Good morning. Good morning, students.
Good morning, teacher.
Good morning, teacher.
Good morning, teacher.
Okay, this is Chibi taking you for this lesson. Can you read what's on board?
Yes.
Okay. Now, if you can read what's on board, you should be preparing to give me answers. I'm asking you, I've drawn here 3 graphs briefly. Hope you can see them. The symbol I've used here, it means concentration of the solution. Even here, there is concentration of the solution. It is there. So I've drawn graphs representing how factors of a plant cell, how that factor, or when the factor can be, I've given a list here. I've given osmotic potential, osmotic pressure. I've given water potential. I've given osmotic potential. I've given turgidity. I've given plasmolysis of a plant cell. I'm asking how each of those factors may vary. I mean the factor of the plant cell, how each of those factors of any plant cell may vary with the increasing concentration of the surrounding solution. And I've given 3 varieties. What I mean is if I have a solution here, and this is the external solution, then I put here a plant cell. This is the plant cell. And this solution, I keep on varying this concentration of the surrounding solution. When I do like this, I mean I start with very dilute. Like here, if it is, for example, pure water. Sorry?
Teacher, I can't see the labels on your graphs.
Can't see the label.
They're not clear.
Okay, let me broaden on the letters. But you can see the question properly.
Yes, teacher.
This word is factor. Even this one means factor. Even this one means factor. And what I meant here, when I use this symbol here, I mean concentration. I mean concentration of the solution. That word is solution. The same here, I mean concentration of the solution. The same applied here. That word is written in shorthand, but I mean concentration of the solution. What I mean, I hope now you can see. This graph is A, this graph is B, this graph is C. Huh? This is A, this is B, this is C. When I put here a factor, since I have so many factors, I have osmotic pressure, water potential, osmotic potential, I have turbidity, I also have plasmolysis, as you can see in that question. So any of that can be represented by a factor. That's why here on the graph I put factor without specifying. That means that can be any factor. This one is factor. It can be pressure potential. It can be osmotic potential, rather, can be osmotic pressure, can be water potential, can be turbidity. So, what I was saying, when I put here concentration of the solution, I've not calculated this, but it means that this is very low concentration. Very low concentration, the lowest concentration is pure water, which can be 100% water without any solute dissolvent. So here I keep on dissolving the solute to increase the concentration. Then I monitor the cell. Like if I keep adding salt here, sodium chloride, then I check the nature of the cell. What has happened to water potential? What has happened to solute potential? What has happened to osmotic pressure? That's what I mean. So I want you briefly to tell me which of these graphs, for example, represents osmotic pressure, represents water potential? Like, how can this water potential of this cell will vary if I kept on adding or increasing the concentration here of its surrounding? Then how is its osmotic pressure will vary if I keep on increasing the concentration of the surrounding? Or how will its turgidity of the cell vary if I keep on increasing the concentration of the surrounding? That's what I mean. Are you ready to give answers? Should I ask, or you are still analyzing? Now, if I may ask, for example, of these graphs, A, B, and C, which one could represent the variation of osmotic pressure? If I may start with the first factor, osmotic pressure of this cell. How will it vary as I increase the concentration of its surroundings? Who can tell us which graph can represent? If we start with osmotic pressure, how will osmotic pressure vary with the increasing concentration of the surrounding? Osmotic pressure of the cell. Will it vary like A? Will it vary like a B? Will it vary like a C? Who can give us the answer?
It's graph A.
Graph A. If I may put them here, osmotic pressure. We have water potential. The third one is osmotic potential. Remember, osmotic potential is the same as solute potential. Then you have four. I've got turgidity. Then 5. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Plasmolysis is the last one. Someone has given us that graph A. I don't know.
I think,
Yes?
I think it's B.
What graph you think is B? It is in who is giving the answer?
Heavens.
Okay. Then who gave us A?
Becky.
Becky. This was Becky. Becky. How do you spell Becky? Becky. Then who gave us B?
Heaven.
Is there any other answer different from the one we have? Is there any C? Because we have only 3 graphs. Okay. What about water potential? How would it vary? We are going to discuss later. Let me first give us the graphs, then we'll discuss them later. How will water potential vary with the concentration of the surrounding?
Graph B.
Graph B. Who is this?
Becky.
Still Becky. Okay. Graph B. Becky. Any other person? Okay, what about solute potential? This one, how is it vary? If I keep on increasing the concentration of the surrounding, how will the solute potential of the cell vary? Will it vary like
Graph C.
graph C? Which graph? I don't know that's it. You said graph, which graph?
Graph B.
Graph B. Is that still Becky?
Graph A.
If someone said graph A. Then what about stability? Maybe they are not what? What about stability?
Graph C.
Graph B. I will concur with B. If you have an alternative, okay. If you have an alternative, you mention. Don't just keep quiet. What about plasmolysis?
Graph A.
Graph A. Okay. Now, I want Beck gave us osmotic pressure to be presented by graph A. Beck, can you please explain your answer? Becky, explain your answer for A. Why do you say osmotic pressure will increase as you increase the surrounding concentration? How does it happen? Or any other person?
Teacher, me, I said it's graph B. Let me try to explain my answer.
Okay.
I have this statement that says the higher the osmotic pressure, the lower the ability to lose water.
Yes.
So the concentration outside the plant cell is high. So the plant cell is going to lose water easily. So the osmotic pressure is low. Since the higher the osmotic pressure, the less ability to lose water. That's what I used to give my answer as graph B.
Yes. Okay, that's Heaven. Heaven saying the higher the osmotic pressure, the lower is the cell's ability to lose water. Yes, that's true. If a cell has higher osmotic pressure, it means that its ability to lose water is low, but its ability to gain water is high. That statement is correct. But here, this graph, if you check properly, I'm saying this cell is placed in a solution whose concentration keeps on increasing by adding some solutes. Now, as I add solutes here, since the surrounding solution is increasing, it will affect the concentration of the solution. So what I'm asking, if the surrounding solution's concentration is increasing as I add solute, what will happen to the osmotic pressure of this cell? Will it be decreasing as it loses water, or will it be increasing? Will it be increasing of that cell? Because I'm increasing the concentration of the surrounding. And as I increase the concentration of the surrounding, the cell will automatically be losing water. Why? The surrounding is getting highly concentrated. So as the cell loses water to the surrounding, what happens to its osmotic pressure? Does it increase? Does it decrease? Does it remain constant?
It decreases.
It decreases. What about others? Will it? Okay, that's heaven saying the pressure will be decreasing. Is that the perfect answer or not? Remember, this cell is losing water to the surrounding solution. And as it loses water, what happens? I said osmotic pressure is all about the concentration of the cell or of the solution. So as the cell loses water to the surrounding, does its concentration increase or decreases?
It increases. Its concentration increases.
Fine, that's correct. As the cell loses water to the surrounding, its concentration is increasing. That's very right. Now, since I said osmotic pressure is directly proportional with the concentration, so what will happen to the osmotic pressure of the cell? Will it be decreasing or increasing? Of the cell, since it is
Increasing.
to be increasing.
Decreasing.
Yes.
Decreasing.
Huh? As someone saying, as the cell loses water to the increasing concentration of the surrounding, its concentration will be increasing, because as you lose water, the proportionality between the solute and the water molecules are decreasing. So its concentration will be increasing. So as the concentration of the cell that is losing water increases, so does its osmotic pressure. Yeah? So please, if you have some private discussion, you need to interrupt us here. So what I'm saying, as the surrounding solution is becoming more concentrated to the cell, automatically osmosis will occur. The cell will be losing water to the surrounding. And as the cell loses water, the concentration of the cell will be increasing. And so does its osmotic pressure. And that would mean the graph, the proper graph that will represent how the osmotic pressure of that cell varies with the concentration, it will be A. So Beck was right. Because as it loses water, its concentration is increasing. And the higher the concentration, the higher the osmotic pressure. I hope you have gone that. So for the proper answer here, like Beck it will be A. That's how it will vary. That would mean if I gave you a graph, I gave you data or an experiment, and you're supposed to plot on the graph, and the graph parameters are two: concentration and then osmotic pressure of that cell. We expect the graph to be increasing. Why? At this high concentration, the cell has lost too much water. So the cell will be highly concentrated. So its osmotic pressure will be high. And that means its ability to draw in water is very high. And its ability to use water is very low. So highly concentrated solution or plant cell will have a higher ability to draw in water. Why? It has a higher osmotic pressure. It is so highly concentrated. That's what I mean. Hope that's clear. Then let's go to pressure B, water potential. Someone said to be B, but I have only one answer given by the class. I don't know that means that we all concur with that answer. Or we have some who say, I'm not sure. Because the best doctor is the one who doesn't gamble. The doctor will say, I'm not certain. Or it is A or it is B. The doctor can't say, I think it would be. No, the doctor must be sure. If you are not, say, I have to have a research. So I have only B. Let's see, is it really correct? As a cell, who can explain that? Who can explain how water potential will?
Teacher, me.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. If you increase the concentration of the solution around, the cell is going to lose water to the surrounding by osmosis.
Yep.
Therefore, as it loses water, the concentration in the sub-vacuole is going to increase. And remember, water potential is the quantity of water molecules in a solution. Therefore, the quantity of water molecules is going to reduce. Therefore, the water potential is going to
decrease. Good. Thank you very much. I think she's perfect. I hope you have all got that. Automatically, as I increase the concentration of the surrounding, there will be a concentration gradient. And the cell, since it is hypotonic to the surrounding, it is likely to lose water. And as it loses water, it becomes somehow concentrated. This solution is new. A cell sap is increasing in concentration. That means the water potential is reducing. The amount of free water molecules in that cell is decreasing. So the water potential must be decreasing. So a cell which is in highly concentrated solution here has a very low water potential. But a cell in a dilute solution, that means that it can even absorb water. So its water potential becomes so high. So as I increase the concentration of the surrounding, the cell loses water. And as it loses water, the amount of free water molecules in that cell is decreasing. And so does the water potential. Perfect, that's good. Then let's go to turgidity. Turgidity, this one. Someone said, hey, before I go to the turgidity, there is a solute potential. I want we have two alternatives. There is B, there is A. Who is in favor of B? And please, can you explain to us? Who is in favor of B? And then go ahead and explain to us. We have two times. Someone gave A and another one gave B. Just try. Nobody's going to hang you. Just give us what you think. Then you can clarify on that and then move.
I'm in favor of A.
Okay, let's have one person. That is the okay. I don't. We have one bit numbers. You are not clear. Please. I don't know that's network. Can you please make it clear? If not hard.
I say that I think that I think that yes, I think that the solid potential remained constant.
Remains constant. So you are BC. Someone solid potential remain constant. Why? Why do you think to remain constant?
Okay, tell me, I've got this from the definition of water molecule. So I don't think that the solid potential will be tampered in any way. I don't know.
You think how would it vary?
Teacher, I don't know how to explain my point.
But you think you would be C. Okay, before we have her, someone else who can explain in whatever way you can. I mean, we want to have a basis of argument.
Teacher, me, I think it's A, because when the water molecules are lost to the surrounding solution, the cell sub concentration, the solid concentration will increase. Yes. Like since the water molecules, most of the water molecules have been lost, the solid concentration will increase.
Okay, it's saying as the cell loses water, that's what it's saying. The concentration increases. That's correct. The concentration increases. But then, how does osmotic potential vary with the concentration? Is it that the higher the concentration, the higher the osmotic potential, or the reverse? Or the higher the concentration, the lower the osmotic potential? How does it vary? Because we said osmotic potential, by the way, it's a term which disturbs people so much because people think osmotic potential or solute potential. People think that it's a bit of a cell to absorb water. That's not the definition of the osmotic potential. And that's not what it means. Osmotic potential, it measures the amount of free water molecules in the solution. It doesn't measure the concentration of the solution. Osmotic potential is almost like water potential. The higher in fact, if you look at BS, I don't know that you checked, BS says it's a measure of a decrease in water potential of the solution as you dissolve in the solute. What it means that as you put solute in the solution, that decrease in water potential is what we call the solute potential. I also gave you a definition, which is from also BS. That definition I started with is a BS definition of third edition and the second edition. But there's also a BS definition I've got fifth edition. Fifth edition, for it says the tendency of water molecules to move by osmosis. And it would mean that the more dilute cell,
Teacher, pardon. The fifth definition.
from the fifth edition, it says the tendency of water molecules to move by osmosis. That is the fifth edition. That's how BS summarized. The tendency of water molecules to move by osmosis. And that would mean a dilute solution has higher tendency of losing water. And that means that its water potential will be high. And a concentrated solution will have a low tendency to lose water by osmosis. And that would mean its solute potential is very low. So that would mean the concentrated solution or the concentrated cell will have a very low water potential because it is highly concentrated. Because when it is highly concentrated, we will have very few water molecules which can be moved by osmosis. And that means its osmotic potential or solute potential must be very low. But then a dilute solution or a cell which has too much water is likely to have too much water. Then the tendency for that water to move is very high by osmosis. And that would mean its solute potential is very high. Now, when you take those two relations, if I have a concentrated solution and a dilute solution, you should not be, you should stop being confused by that term. The higher the concentration, the lower of a cell or of a solution, the lower the solute potential, because it will be having a very low tendency or ability to lose water. But it will have a higher ability to absorb. But its tendency to lose water by osmosis will be very low. So I can even modify the first definition. I say the tendency of water molecules to move by osmosis. I can as well say the tendency or solute potential. It measures the tendency of a solution or of a cell to lose water by osmosis. In fact, that one would be very clear and easy to understand. I could say, if I write it here for clarity, this one is the tendency of a cell to lose water by osmosis. If I may summarize it this way, the tendency of a cell to lose water by osmosis. The tendency of a cell to lose water by osmosis. That means that when a cell is highly concentrated, its tendency to lose water will be low. And then so is its water potential will be low. And if a cell is so dilute, its tendency to lose water will be high. And so its solute potential will also be high. So that means that the higher the concentration, a highly concentrated solution has a very low water potential and then a very low solute potential. And the dilute cell has a very high water potential and then therefore a very high solute potential. Because the more dilute the cell is, the higher is the tendency for that solution to lose water by osmosis. And so will be its solute potential. So stop confusing the concentration, osmotic potential with osmotic pressure. Osmotic pressure will always increase, as we said, as you increase the concentration. Because as the cell loses water, its concentration will be increasing. So the osmotic pressure will be high. Because osmotic pressure, it measures the tendency of a cell to absorb water. If I put it that way. Osmotic pressure is the tendency of a cell to absorb water. But osmotic potential is the tendency of a cell to lose water by osmosis. Osmotic pressure, the tendency of a cell to lose water by osmosis. Osmotic pressure, a tendency of a cell to absorb water by osmosis. So when a cell is highly concentrated, it has a lower tendency to lose water. And that means to have a lower tendency, a lower solute potential. But to have a higher tendency to absorb water, so it will have a higher osmotic pressure. So if it is a tissue or a cell, if I say the cell is highly concentrated, if I have two tissues or cells, if I have cell A, which is highly concentrated, and I have cell B, which is dilute. This cell A, which is highly concentrated, will have a very low solute potential, osmotic potential. And this one, this cell, which is highly concentrated, will have a very low solute potential. But this one, which is dilute, will have a very high solute potential. But this one with the high solute potential will have a very low pressure potential. What do I mean? This one, which is dilute with a low concentration, will have too much water. Then you have a higher tendency to lose. Then you have a higher solute potential. And this one will have a lower solute potential. So to simplify that, what you should know, if you have to note somewhere, you have to say that if a solution or a cell is concentrated, you will have very low water potential. And then that's very low solute potential. Because by the way, water potential and solute potential vary the same way. Because they are all about free water molecules in the cell. But osmotic pressure just about a cell's concentration, and it measures the tendency to absorb. But solute potential and water potential, it measures the tendency of a cell to lose water by osmosis. Both solute potential and water potential, it's basically will measure the tendency of that cell to lose water by osmosis, because they both depend on how many free water molecules. But you get a problem. Somewhere, if someone tells you the higher the concentration, the higher the solute potential, that means that there is a confusion. Someone may not have grasped that concept well, but that's how it has to be. Solute potential and water potential both vary the same way, and they depend on how many free water molecules are present. The higher the water molecules, the higher the water potential, the higher the solute potential, and then the higher the tendency of that cell to lose water by osmosis. So you can simply say a solute potential is the measure of the tendency of a cell or a solution to lose water by osmosis. The higher the concentration, the lower the tendency. The more dilute the solution, the higher the tendency. Now, basing on that, what would be the best graph? Is it C? Is it B? Is it A? Someone say, oh, as if we have got all the things. Now, who is right here? For solute potential. Is it because I've got B, I've got A, I've got C? Now all the graphs are represented here. Who is huh?
B. I think it's B.
It's B. Yes. So the answer is B. In fact, that's the best answer. And another way it could help you to grasp the thing, just know, since water potential is so clear to you, just know that water potential and solute potential, they two vary in the same way with the concentration. Water potential and solute potential vary in the same trend with the concentration. The higher the concentration, the lower the solute potential, the lower the water potential. The lower the concentration, the higher. And the relation is inversely proportional. The higher the concentration, the lower the water potential, the lower the solute potential. The lower the concentration, the higher the water potential, the higher the solute potential. They vary the same way. And that would mean we would go with the B. That means that if the surrounding has very low concentration, the cell will be absorbing water. And as it absorbs water, it will have too much water in it. And then its water potential will be high. And since it has too much water in it, so the tendency of that cell to lose water by osmosis will also be high. So its solute potential will be high. Now, as I increase here the concentration, so the surrounding solution, external solution, try to get higher and higher. And as it gets higher, the cell starts losing water. And as it loses water, it's getting concentrated. A cell, and as it gets concentrated, its ability to lose water by osmosis is getting low. So by the time to reach here, it's so concentrated that it can't lose any more water, or it becomes so complicated to lose water. And since solute potential measures the tendency of a cell to lose water by osmosis, then its solute potential for osmotic potential will be very low. Now, let's go to the next one. How about turgidity? How will turgidity vary? Someone gave us B, as if there's no contention there. I don't know whether there's no contention or some people are not very sure. Is there a person who says, I can't give the answer because I'm not sure, or we all believe it is B? Oh, who can explain that answer for turgidity to be represented by graph B? Someone should explain to us. Unmute and then explain. I know some of you may want to start, they may start speaking when they are still muted. Just unmute and then you give us the explanation. In a simple way you can.
Teacher, as the water molecules move outside the cell sap, the cell vacuole reduces in size, like it reduces. That's my explanation. Since water molecules are moving out of the cell.
I don't want to lose you. Heavens, I don't want to lose you, heaven. I've lost you. Please come back.
So what do you want me to continue? That's all I have.
Yeah, you are saying as the cell loses water, the vacuum becomes small. That's good. But then related to that turgidity, then the turgidity does what?
Turgidity?
A decrease or increase? As the vacuum decreases. Correct, Heaven is right. So the graph is going to be B. I think she has explained perfectly that as a cell loses water, its surrounding, the vacuole is becoming smaller, it shrinks. And the vacuole becomes smaller, you find that even the pressure, again, even the memory can start pulling away from the wall. And that, since the turgidity is determined by how stretched the wall is, so you find that as the cell loses water, it becomes flaccid. I hope you have ever heard of that word, flaccid. It becomes small and becomes soft. And turgidity measures the hardness, how hard the cell is. You can even joke around, but don't abuse your friends, but you can be joking around. But as you chat around, you discuss with your friends jokingly, try to use these terms so that you don't forget. Instead of saying that person is hard, you can say that person is turgid. And if you are many people around, you may not understand. Only you will understand what you mean. I mean that guy is turgid. You see someone hard. It could mean the physical appearance, or it could mean someone is hard. Not physically, but with his or her decisions. So hardness is turgidity. So I think Heaven is right. The graph will be big. Because at this point, when it's dilute, the cell will be taking in water, and then the vacuum will be enlarging, and the membrane will be expanding, and then to reach a time whereby the wall cannot expand anymore. And that's when you can say the cell is turgid. And as you increase the surrounding concentration, the cell starts losing water. And as it starts losing water, the vacuum is becoming smaller. The membrane can even start pulling away. And then we say the cell is losing turbidity, or its turbidity keeps on decreasing. So turbidity will be varying in the same way. By the way, turbidity, water potential, and the solute potential vary in the same way. The higher the concentration, the less the water available. Now, if we're talking in terms of a plant cell, will have very low turbidity. But when the cell is dilute, it will have too much water, and the higher chances of stretching over the membrane against the wall. So that opposing pressure will make the cell hard, and then we say the cell is turgid. But we can say that it doesn't mean if a cell is turgid, it has reached what we call isotonicity. Doesn't mean that the solution surrounding the cell and the cell have the same concentration. No. I can't say that it has become isotonic to the solution. No. It means that it could be still highly concentrated to the surrounding, but the wall cannot expand anymore. And that means that if there is still a difference in the concentration, that cannot stop osmosis. Because osmosis, so long as there is a gradient and there is semi-permeability, if those two factors are in place, there is no way you can stop osmosis. But when a cell is turgid, still water will continue to move from a dilute solution to concentrated into the cell. But the problem is there's no more increase in the room. So how is that balanced? It will mean as osmosis, that gradient draws in water into the cell, some water will be leaving the cell forcefully outside. And that would mean the cell receives as much water as it loses. That's when we say the cell is turgid, but doesn't mean that it is isotonic. But also doesn't mean that isotonicity does not happen. It happens. But when you reach isotonic kind of state, that means that water has moved from one solution to another, and since the dilute solution is losing water, as it loses water, it's becoming concentrated. And the one receiving water, remember, the one we started with one highly concentrated. Highly concentrated has very little water, and the dilute one has too much water. So as the one on the left loses water, its concentration is decreasing. And then as the one on the right receives water, as the one on the right loses water, its concentration is decreasing. So you find that it will decrease until they will become the same. And when it becomes the same, we would say that there is a isotonicity. So when it reaches to isotonic state, still you may say it's very hard also to stop water, but water can still keep on moving, but in both directions at the same rate. Now we have one factor remaining, plasmolysis. And we have A. Someone give us A. Who can explain that answer? First of all, you need to first define to us what is osmosis. I mean plasmolysis. Then you guide it and explain so that we all get to understand it better. Hello? Who can explain the last one?
Let me try.
I'll try.
Plasmolysis is the tendency of the cell subvacuole to leave the cell wall. Is that fine?
What leaves? I think leaving.
Like,
you can use another term. Like what?
or to move away from the tendency of the cell subvacuole to move away from the cell wall.
Okay, but what is moving away from the cell wall is not the vacuum, it's the cell membrane. Yeah. Because if you have got the wall here, a vacuole is the innermost, but there's also a membrane. These are the two. If you remember your plant cell, this one is the cell wall. I've used the double line because it's thick. This is the cell wall. Cell wall. Then the thin one is the cell membrane. This one, the cell membrane. Cell membrane. Then this inner one, the tonoplast. Tonoplast means the membrane of vacuum. Vacuum membrane. Yeah? So if I make it clear here, if this is the cell wall, since it is thick, that's the cell wall. The outermost, that's the cell wall. Then next is the cell membrane. I'm using one line because it is already thin. And since we started the cell biology, the cell membrane, remember it is a lipid barrier. Remember very well, it's impermeable, selectively permeable. Then I've got another membrane similar to the cell membrane in chemical nature. This is the tonoplast. Tonoplast. Or vacuum membrane. Vacuum membrane. This is cell membrane. Cell membrane. And this is cell wall. So Evans, you are saying the protoplasm, you are saying the vacuum. When the vacuum is shrinking or shrivel, when it starts shrinking, becomes smaller. So even the pressure between the vacuum and the membrane is reducing. So you find that this membrane is the one pulling away from the wall, leaves the gap, this gap. And when the membrane pulls away from the wall, then we say the cell is getting plasmolized, or the cell is plasmolized. And when it's just beginning to pull out, so what it pulls out is the cell membrane as a vacuum becomes smaller. But not a vacuum pulling away from the wall, but a cell membrane pulling away from the wall. So as a vacuum becomes smaller, shrinks, the membrane will also start pulling away from the wall. And when it just started pulling away from the wall, that's when we say the cell is getting plasmolized. That's what we call incipient plasmolysis. And that's when the pressure potential, the wall pressure becomes zero. But plasmolysis can continue as this membrane is pulling farther away from the wall. So we can say, for example, if I have two cells here, I have a cell like this. Cell A, let's say it's like this. And then this is B. You can eat portion for us already we have the so you are going to so cell A is less plasmolized than cell B. So the bigger the gap between the membrane and the wall, the more the plasmolysis. The smaller the gap between the membrane and the wall, the less the plasmolysis. That's what you make. So, Evan, you are saying plasmolysis is the pulling away of the membrane from the wall as the cell loses water. Correct. So, which graph? Tell us. You are not completed. So, graph A.
Yes.
Yes, I think you understand that as the concentration surrounding the cell gets highly concentrated, so the cell will lose more water. And as it loses more water, the membrane will be further pulled away from the wall and it becomes this one. So the higher the concentration, the higher the plasmolysis. I think that's correct. So we can have two terms here of how a plant cell relates with the different concentrations. A plant cell can either be turgid or it can be plasmolized. When a cell is turgid, that means that it has absorbed water by osmosis. From where? From the surrounding dilute solution. And when a cell is plasmolized, that means that it has lost water. To where? To a highly concentrated solution. And then I say a cell is plasmolized. But a plasmolized cell will be flat. It will be soft. Soft. If I use the word soft, the same as flask, the same as plasmolized cell. So when I use any of these three terms, don't get lost. This cell is soft. This cell is plasmolized. I mean, it's flasked. Or this cell is plasmolized. But this a cell which is not plasmolized, which is turgid. This one also plasmolized by now. The only difference is that the intensity of plasmolysis here just begun, has lost very little water. Here has lost too much water. So if I have these cells, if I have these cells, if I have these cells, I have A, B, and then C here. And then I have something like that. This is C, this is A, this is B. This one, this is the wall. Like here, this is the wall. Like here, this is the wall. If you look through the map, or if I draw you such drawings, this one I can just say is studied. Why? I can't see the cell membrane. The cell membrane is fully pressed against the wall. Remember, as takes in water, tends to expand, then the wall presses against the expansion of the membrane. They find that they are closely attached. When I use the light microscope with the low resolution power, it can't give me the contrast, can't give me the difference between the two. It sees the wall and the membrane as a one layer. So this one, I'll then if ask you which solution is this one coming from, then I'll say this one's placed in dilute solution because it has absorbed water. Then A, I will also say this is plasmolyzed. Even this one is plasmolyzed. But if I ask you, solution, if this was put in solution B, this is put in solution A, and this one put in solution B. This one is put in solution, to become this was put in solution C, to become this was put in solution A, to become this was put in solution B. This and that, they are plasmolyzed. This one is studied. If I may ask, solution C, in which this cell was placed C, and solution A, in which this cell was placed, and in solution B, in which this cell B was placed, which one of those three solutions is the most hypertonic solution?
B.
Aha. That's very correct. B is the most hypertonic. Now, if I ask you why, how have we known it's B? Can you give us the reason?
The cell membrane has pulled away, like it has pulled away like from the cell wall so much compared to the rest.
Correct. I can't add anything on that. The membrane of B is more plasmolyzed. Practically, it's saying has pulled away farther, the farthest from the wall. That means that it has lost too much of the water. Why? It was put in the most highly concentrated solution. That's correct. And then which one was the most hypotonic solution? The most dilute. I'm waiting. We are waiting for the answer. Huh?
C.
C.
It is what?
C.
C.
Yeah, good. Thank you very much. It is C, the most hypotonic solution. Why? It is turgid. It has absorbed too much water. How have we known? We can't see the cell membrane. But remember, in practicals, you cannot see the membrane, the tonoplast. You can't see this membrane. We can only see a cell membrane. In fact, in light microscope, we don't even see clearly the cell membrane, but what we see a gap which is so clear. And then this other part, we see a wall is clear, can be seen with the cell, with the light microscope. But then the protoplasm will appear a bit milky, like that. But you can't see the vacuum. The vacuum just appear milky like this. The protoplasm. Protoplasm means the cytoplasm and the vacuum and the cell membrane. So to appear, even here, you can't see the food vacuum without light microscope, but you will see something like that. That's how it will appear. Why it's not clear, it has proteins and what, so to limit light penetration. So here you can see any clear gap between the protoplasm. Protoplasm